surely this isn't for me, right? I mean, yeah, come on, it's only a Foxbody. I mean, come on. All right, what's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1986 Ford Mustang. Up front is a 5.0-liter V8, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. This video is sponsored by CarMarshal.com. If you'd like to support the channel, click the link down in the description below. CarMarshal.com advertises for over 100,000 vehicles across the U.S. Let's get back to that 5.0-liter V8. Now, it's actually a 4.94 liter. Ford said it was a 5-liter. They kind of fudged the numbers a little bit in the 80s, but you know, everyone was sort of doing that in the 80s, so that's not to be unexpected. But what's interesting is that the fact that this is an automatic car, which we'll talk about in a second, so it actually got a fuel-injected motor. The previous years of the Foxbody, if it was manual, it was carbureted. If it was automatic, it was fuel-injected, which is sort of interesting. I haven't really heard of many other cars doing that, where the transmission actually dictates what sort of fuel delivery you get in the engine. But we have to remember that the 80s were a time where people were crossing over into fuel injection. It was becoming more mainstream. For instance, the RX-7 started the decade with only offering a carbureted engine, the 12A, and it ended the decade with a fuel-injected engine, and let alone a turbocharged fuel-injected engine. So the 80s were a very interesting time for fuel delivery in vehicles. Now, that being said, the 5.0 makes a decent amount of horsepower for the decade. You won't really be cracking 200 horsepower anytime soon with engines like this. However, it's still a V8. You still have that torque. It's still spunky. Just don't expect to rev it too much. My red line here starts about 4,800 maybe. It gets into the yellow at 5, and right before 6, that's the hard red line. Do not go there. And so this is one of the older styles, lumpy, throaty V8s where it's all down low, all low-end torque. And so a lot of people criticize me for, in my modern Mustang review, I said, you know, a V8 that revs to 8,250, that's insane. And everyone's like, yeah, it's modern technology. Well, 30 years ago, this thing was revving to 47. That's almost twice the amount of revs. That's how far technology has come. All right, let's give her a little bit of gas here. Woo! Not the fastest thing in the world. Now, we're already moving, and the transmission, of course, didn't really kick down when I wanted it to, whatever. But you get that torque, that and that sound. The 5.0s sound great. They sound phenomenal. I absolutely love them. Shift. There we go. Thank you. Whew. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic. And what I have to say about that is, first of all, I have driven a manual 5.0 Foxbody of actually the same year. It's a convertible. I don't know if my friend still has it. I'd like to reach out to him. Sean, if you're watching and you still have your convertible Foxbody, let me know. But having driven the manual and having driven the automatic, I, of course, would prefer the manual. It's a 5-speed. It really, you muscle it into gear. It's a tried and true muscle car V8. It takes some muscle to get it in, and it gives you some muscle to the rear wheels as well. Now, the automatic is all right. This is a very, very aged automatic, and so this thing has miles on it. This thing has been through it all, and so on some shifts, as you'll notice, it's a little clunky, and sometimes it hesitates, and fourth gear, for some reason, it's a little bit afraid of it. Doesn't really like going into that. And so it's an 80s automatic. Does it work? Yes. Do I enjoy it? No. And last but not least, of course, the Foxbody, the Mustang, is rear-wheel drive. So let's talk about the interior. It's very 80s, and I love it. In front of me, I have a bunch of different gauges. In the center on the left is my tachometer with that huge red line. I really like it, though. It's a really satisfying red line to watch. And then on the right, I have my speedometer with the 55 mile an hour highlighted in red. This is the same era where the national speed limit was 55 miles an hour, so most cars from this era either have an arrow or a red line, or they point to 55 miles an hour to let everyone know, hey, don't go above that, but you can. Now, interestingly enough, this only goes up to 85 miles an hour, So it is a common thing to swap different gauges into this car so you can have that higher speedometer, because even this car can blow 85 miles an hour out of the water without really too much effort. So once you get above there, you really don't know what you're doing, at least speed-wise. But then to the left of that, I have my amperage and coolant temperature. On the right, I have my oil pressure and fuel. Very, very bare bones. I mean, like, literally the rivets to put them in are just exposed. There's no hiding. There's no, like, special trim. There's nothing hiding the fact that these were bolted in. And I sort of like that. I like the 80s, very raw, very utilitarian. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. I went on a big rant when I drove an 87 BMW, and so I'll link that video at the end if you want to hear my entire rant about the 80s, but I like that a lot. On the steering wheel, although it is missing the centerpiece, which would not have an airbag, on the left I have on and off for the cruise control, and then on the right I do have my cruise control settings. So that is nice. This car was offered with cruise control. To the left, I literally just have a vent, and on the door, I do have power windows, and they're literally drilled onto the door. They're not angled towards the driver at all. You know, screw me, right? In the center, I do have another vent and a very, very basic climate control area. Temperature, warm or cool, fan high and low, and then I can select where I want it for a mix, floor, vent. I mean, it's really, really basic. You want heat or do you not? That's what that's telling me. Of course, the radio has been switched out because 80s radios are pretty much garbage. And so this has been replaced with looks like some early mid-2000s one. Down below though, I do have a little interesting panel. This is very, very 80s. There is indicator lights for possible things that could be out. My headlights, brake lights, tail light, which I guess brake lights and tail lights are separate things, but I feel like that'd be one thing. Low fuel, washer fluid. There's little indicator lights on a diagram of a Foxbody. I mean, it doesn't really actually look that much like a Foxbody. I'm sure other cars use this same sort of pattern. Like the Thunderbird was on the same platform, the Turbo Coupe, things like that. And so I'm sure they shared the same little picture. And then to the right of that, I do have a little clock, a little digital clock that I really like. And then I have a 12-volt outlet and a little ashtray. Now we come to the shifter. The shifter looks proper. It looks definitely dated. It looks from the 80s because it is nothing really too crazy here, but I actually sort of like the look of the center console. It's very clean, very simple, and I can't really complain about it. Then we do, of course, have a handbrake. Now the seats are pretty comfortable. They are cloth. They hold you pretty well. I mean, obviously they're not the most aggressive seats, but this isn't really the most aggressive trim of the Foxbody, so I don't really expect too much out of it. But they are comfortable, and we do have back seats. So reluctantly, we will do, of course, a back seat review. So I'm gonna get back here, and then I'm gonna do this really quick because I can't close the door once I'm back here. Legroom is horrible back here. Headroom is actually really great because of the hatch. I'm sorry because of the beeping. I can't close the door. I'm alone. It's fine. The hatch actually makes it pretty usable, but you know, I guess if I sat real up straight like this, you know, maybe this would be okay. I do have what seems to be a little ashtray back here, and that's it. All right, shut up, buzzing. One last thing I want to point out in the interior is that I do get a map light, and so it's a light up top, but you kind of take it out and you swivel it where you need it. It's kind of odd looking, kind of funny. I mean, cars used to have lights like this, but it's funny that like you don't have two of them. It's just like one person gets to see it. One person gets to use it. If you have a passenger, they get to use it, not you, you know, stuff like that. It's really funny. And it sort of reminds me of those tentacle creatures from the Matrix, how they like kind of come down and stare at you. Because you can swivel it all around and make it look at you and all that sort of stuff. It's just a very funny 80s thing that we don't really see anymore. Overall, I have to say the interior isn't too bad. It's exactly what I would expect out of an 80s car. It feels very 80s. It's sort of minimalist while trying to incorporate some new technology, and I like that a lot. Now, talking about the looks, I love the looks of Foxbodies. Foxbodies are some of my favorite Mustangs, and I keep saying Foxbody. This is the Fox platform. Ford made a couple different cars on the Fox platform, and so if you're interested in this generation of Mustang, this is called a Foxbody. They also later made this into the 90s, and that had a single sealed beam headlight instead of this one having the 2 headlights per pod. So this is the first half of the Foxbodies, and then the second half had a different front end setup, and then you got the SVT and the Cobra and things like that. But I really do like the look of it. This is also a hatchback. They also sold a notchback. And so the notchback actually had a solid rear window and then a trunk. So I have to say the Foxbody is one of my favorite Mustangs, and how perfect. Here we are at the end of 2019. I'm releasing this video on Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas Eve if you're watching this brand new. How fitting that I dedicated 2019 to the year of the Mustang, that one of the final reviews of the year is another generation of the Mustang. This is technically a 3rd generation Mustang, if you go by generations, that is. And I have to say, this was a good year for Mustangs. People debate me on this, but I really like the Foxbody. I think that they're really, really great. I think they're super 80s, which I love. They're not overly complicated. Most of your issues can be fixed with a box end wrench and a pack of Marlboro lights. And so thank you, Mike, for letting me take out your Foxbody. I really appreciate it. This thing, I love it. I mean, it's a good year of Mustang. They're solid. I think they look great. They look period correct. They're so 80s, and I love that so much. And before we end this video, let me do a quick, a spark-noted version of my rant about the 80s. This time, 2019 here, a lot of people, they don't like feeling their true feelings. They don't like feeling depressed, so they post about it on Facebook and get sympathy from people. We don't like feeling the road. We have very comfortable, muted cars. But the 80s were so raw. Everything was so at the surface. Emotions were there. I mean, just listen to the music and the lights and the colors. Nothing was muted. Now people wear comfort colored t-shirts, which are comfortable, but they're muted colors. I mean, they're dulled down colors. And so that's why I love the 80s, because it's so raw. It's so in your face. It is what it is. It's unapologetic. These gauges are just bolted in. Why? Because they have to be bolted in. This is raw. I feel things. I hear things. I don't feel separated from the road. I feel like I am trudging down this reformed, repurposed asphalt that we call the road. It's so raw, so unmuted, and I love that about 80s cars. That's my abbreviated rant. I won't go any further, but man, I love 80s cars, and that's why. And so thank you, Mike, so much for letting me take out your 80s Mustang. Again, 1986 Foxbody. It's absolutely great. I mean, you know, it is what it is, and it doesn't apologize for that. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys. There goes a sight from my soul.